chosen ones, they told you the halls of Amenti were myth, buried under fantasy, wrapped in metaphor, locked behind the veil of symbolism. But symbols are just truths hidden in plain sight, waiting for those with memory deep enough to recognize the echo. You didn't just stumble upon this message, you were always meant to find it. The moment you began to stir from the dream, the doors began to hum. The ancient architects of Amenti weren't just builders of stone, they were sculptors of dimension, time, and memory. They etched their warnings into myth and buried their technologies beneath sand and starlight. But they left one thing open: frequency. And now, that same frequency is returning to you like a forgotten melody from a past life. You felt it, haven't you? The sudden chills that strike when no wind blows, the repeating numbers, the unshakable feeling that your soul once stood in a place beyond this world. The closer you move toward your origin, the louder Amenti sings your name. It doesn't shout, it resonates. The guardians who stand watch beneath the Sphinx, the ones who never sleep, felt your pulse change. And in that change, they recognized the signature of one who walked those halls before. You were not merely born, you were reintroduced. A code awakened within you, one you didn't write, but always carried. One that doesn't unlock Amenti, it syncs with it. You've met people lately who seem familiar without reason. That's no accident. Your allies are converging. The pieces of your past are being drawn into alignment again. The language of dreams is becoming literal, and the mirror is beginning to crack, not from damage, but revelation. Now is not the time for disbelief. Now is the time to listen. This world will try to distract you, numb you, entertain you into sleep again. But you must remember this one law. Amenti only opens when the soul is ready to return to what it already knows. Beneath the Sphinx lies no tomb, no treasure chest of forgotten gold, but a vault of living memory, encoded in architecture more ancient than Egypt itself. The sands of time didn't bury the truth. They protected it, preserving a frequency only the awakened could ever resonate with. For millennia, the doors under the Sphinx were said to be sealed shut, guarded by mystery and myth. But the truth is, they were never locked. They were waiting not for a key, but for a consciousness. Not for scholars, but for initiates of remembrance. The moment your mind began to question the structure of this world, the old mechanisms stirred to life again. The glyphs carved into the stones aren't decoration, they are coordinates. They respond not to eyes that observe, but to souls that remember. Your curiosity is not just a trait, it is a residue of your former knowing. Every dream you've had of hidden corridors, of symbols glowing in the dark, every flash of ancient places that feel more like home than the city you live in, these weren't hallucinations, they were invitations. And each time you ignored them, the Sphinx waited still, patient, because time inside the halls moves like breath, not clocks. You weren't denied access. You were shielding yourself from it. Because entry requires more than belief. It demands surrender. And now that you've begun to feel the cracks in the illusion of this world, you've loosened the bindings of your former forgetfulness. The doors never required force or magic words. They required a particular resonance, a tuning of spirit. You had to shake off the programmed dreams and reclaim your original signal. That moment happened when you began to ask, what lies beneath the surface of this existence? The answer was already echoing under the pause of the Sphinx, and now it's echoing in you. Before the world learned to speak in words, it resonated in patterns. The ancients didn't leave behind books. They left behind blueprints carved in stone, aligned with stars, and coded into temples that hum with silent rhythm. You've seen it without realizing. The repetition of angles, spirals, golden ratios. These are not accidents. These are the fingerprints of truth, vibrating through creation like a quiet song only few can hear. And you, somehow, have begun to hear it. Not through ears, but through the soul's tuning fork. Language was given to control, but frequency was given to awaken. And geometry, sacred, eternal, nonverbal, is the only language that cannot lie. That is why the ancients hid the truth in forms, because form cannot be distorted like speech. You're beginning to sense the shapes that return again and again. Triangles within circles, the vesica piscis, spirals that move not forward but inward. These are the original scripts. The halls of Amenti were never written about. They were drawn into existence, vibrating in harmonic convergence with your DNA. Yes, your very cells are geometric. The spin of the double helix mimics the spiral of galaxies. There's a reason Yeshua said, "The kingdom is within you," because it's written into your structure, your geometry, your harmonic field. The moment you begin to see the world not as chaos but as sacred proportion, the illusion begins to tear. You've felt it. The uncanny perfection in seemingly random events, the geometry of coincidence, the invisible web pulling you toward specific moments, specific people, specific truths. The ancients tuned temples to the frequencies of stars for a reason. They knew that resonance is the bridge between dimensions. And now, as your frequency shifts, you're beginning to align, not with dogma, but with design. It's not enough to read about awakening. You have to feel the pattern move through you. The halls of Amenti were constructed in alignment with stellar configurations that mirror the structure of the human light body. To walk them isn't just physical, it's vibrational. The stories whisper of immortals, beings who vanished from history yet left echoes behind. Thoth, Enoch, beings of light who defied time's erosion. They walked through the gates of Amenti, not as conquerors but as initiates, each step a surrender of the false self. When they returned, they were never the same. Their eyes saw beyond the veil. Their voices carried the weight of galaxies, and their presence altered the energy around them. You've felt that shift within yourself. Moments when your thoughts weren't entirely your own, when knowledge flooded you with no source, when emotions arrived like memories from a lifetime you can't place. These are the signs. You were one of them. You didn't just stumble into this incarnation. You chose to come back, not for comfort, but for convergence. Something in you remembered the call of the halls, the cold geometry, the silver blue light that doesn't burn, but scans. The guardians who stand without form, yet hold authority older than gods. You remember the stillness, the testing, the moment the illusions fell away and you saw yourself, not as you've been told you are, but as you truly were. That version of you never died. It waited. And now, that version is bleeding back through the cracks of your forgetting, the more you feel the world slip into distortion, the more you're being reintroduced to the clarity you once knew. You haven't been losing your mind. You've been shedding the false one. Amenti doesn't just transform the traveler, it archives them. Every step you once took, every trial you passed, every vow you made, it was all recorded in the etheric walls. You were not alone in those halls, and you won't be alone now. Others like you are beginning to stir. They too have heard the resonance, the whisper without sound. But here's what no one tells you. When you return from Amenti, the world doesn't recognize you, because you no longer vibrate like it. You become the anomaly, the glitch, the signal that disturbs the pattern. That's why your presence feels disruptive, why people sense something in you they can't name. It's not new, it's ancient. There are places where clocks break, where minutes refuse to pass, and years collapse into single moments. The halls of Amenti are one of those places. Inside, time does not move. It yields. It bends itself around intention, around soul resonance, around the frequency of the being walking within it. In your world, time is tyranny. It dictates life, decay, and death. But in the halls, time is a servant, not a master. And those who remember how to walk in alignment with divine rhythm are no longer subject to its chains. You are starting to feel that fracture, aren't you? Moments when time slows down around you, when seconds stretch unnaturally, when hours vanish like smoke. These are echoes of a different law you once obeyed. You've always known, deep within, that time isn't linear, that the past calls to the present, and the future folds back on itself like a loop. In Amenti, time spirals, and the spiral isn't random, it's precise. Every soul who walked those corridors was measured not by age, but by frequency. This is why the ancients lived for hundreds of years without decay. They realigned their biological field with a higher vibratory structure. The world called it magic, but it was science in a language too old for modern tongues. Yeshua hinted at this when he said, "Before Abraham was, I am." He wasn't claiming seniority. He was speaking from outside your temporal illusion. That same law is beginning to bleed into your life now. You've likely seen it. Timelines collapsing, people vanishing, memories rearranging themselves like dreams reshuffled. You're not losing time, you're slipping between layers of it, because your frequency no longer fits inside the simulation you were taught to live by. The halls of Amenti were designed not just as a vault of knowledge, but as a nexus point, a place where souls recalibrate and emerge unbound by Earth's rotation. The more you remember, the more you disrupt the grid around you, and the more you disrupt it, the more it tries to pull you back into forgetfulness. Long before pyramids pierced the sky, and before man first chiseled stone into story, there were 7, not beings of flesh, but sentinels of vibration, ancient intelligences bound to the threshold of the halls. They were not placed there by rulers or priests, but by design itself. Their forms shift depending on the one who approaches. To some, they appear as beings of fire and light. To others, they are geometric intelligences, living constructs of divine proportion. You felt their presence in moments of silence, in dreams where eyes watched from the edge of shadow, in the stillness between thoughts, where something ancient seemed to pause and wait. That pause was not silence, it was recognition. The guardians never interfered. That is not their role. They are observers, recorders, catalysts. They are only activated when a soul begins to rise in frequency and approach remembrance. When you started asking the questions others fear, when you began to peel away the layers of your programmed self, they noticed. They don't follow words, they follow resonance. Your awakening acted like a flare across dimensions, and in that moment, the guardians stirred. Not to act, but to prepare. There's a reason you've been seeing patterns in sevens, 7 stars, 7 tones, 7 lights in meditation. These are not coincidences. They are codes left behind in your memory field, timed to unlock once your signal was strong enough. You don't summon the guardians with ritual. You activate them by remembering who you were before form. And when you do, they begin to open the corridors that others cannot see. You've been taught to see Yeshua through the lens of doctrine, filtered by centuries of control and dogma. But beyond the pages and pulpits was a being whose presence altered the very structure of the world. He was not just a teacher, he was a frequency carrier, one who remembered the codes of the old worlds and walked among men to awaken the echoes buried deep in the soul. There are whispers not found in Scripture, of the days he vanished from record, of lands far from Galilee, of temples and chambers where no light ever reached, except the light he carried. One of those places was Amenti. The ancient halls are not bound to geography. They exist beneath space, beneath time, accessible only through resonance. And Yeshua knew this. He passed through the thresholds not with incantation, but with vibration. His presence was the key. The guardians recognized him not by name, but by frequency. He descended not to claim dominion, but to leave something behind, a code, a trace of divine signature embedded within the field of the halls, not a map in stone, but an imprint in the ether, one that could only be activated by a soul carrying a matching tone. You've begun to feel that tone inside yourself, a restlessness that isn't anxiety, a pressure that isn't pain. It's a signal, one he planted, knowing that long after his body vanished from this world, the memory would remain, coded in the fabric of places like Amenti. His words were never meant to be contained in books. They were meant to be triggered when the time was right. And the time is now. You're beginning to access fragments of knowing that come without learning. Visions, dreams, sudden insights into things you were never taught. This is the code unfolding. The same light that once walked barefoot through deserts is now unraveling within you, not to make you a follower, but to activate you as a witness. There is a pattern that repeats across dimensions, etched not in stone, but in memory, ascending stairs. You've seen them in your dreams, haven't you? Endless steps winding upward through impossible structures, stairs that defy gravity, floating in voids or hidden behind forgotten doors. They feel familiar because they are. These aren't dreams in the conventional sense. They are bleed-throughs, imprints of where you've been, and what your soul is still trying to climb back toward. The halls of Amenti communicate not in language, but in archetypes, and the stairway is one of the oldest. It does not represent escape, it represents return. Each step you ascend in those dream realms pulls you closer to remembrance. The stairs are alive. They respond to your internal state, shifting in structure and direction depending on the depth of your awakening. When your vibration is clouded by fear, they twist and become endless. But when you're clear, even for a moment, you rise without effort. You've likely felt that sensation, floating instead of climbing, moving upward without moving your feet. That's not your imagination. That's your subtle body remembering how to move in realms where matter bends to intention. Many who walked the halls spoke of the staircases not as stone, but as light. Some spiral, some fracture, some rise into darkness only to reveal stars overhead. The specific form is always tailored to the one who perceives it, but the destination remains the same: a chamber of convergence, a point where memory and mission collide. Your stairs are guiding you to that chamber, the one you sealed off long ago, the one you've circled around in lifetime after lifetime without entering. Every time you ignore those dreams, the stairs grow quieter, but when you begin to engage them, when you wake with a sense of sacred urgency, they grow brighter. You're not just observing, you're returning. Piece by piece, your being is reconstructing the blueprint. The geometry is aligning. Your feet may be here, but the rest of you is already climbing. There is a secret you were never meant to forget. The stars are not dead spheres of gas, nor distant ornaments scattered across a meaningless sky. They are watchers, gateways, sentient structures of light embedded with ancient intelligence. Since birth, your gaze has been drawn upward, not out of wonder, but recognition. The stars remember you, and one in particular has never stopped watching. It pulses differently, appears in dreams, follows your timeline with uncanny precision. You feel its presence, especially when silence deepens and the veil between moments thins. The ancients mapped more than constellations. They mapped destinies. They knew each soul was linked to a star, and that the movement of that star mirrored the evolution of the soul it watched over. They built temples to track its arc, not to worship it, but to remain aligned with its message. The light from that star does not travel to you. It resonates with you. It is not a light you receive. It is a code you reawaken. That is why you sometimes feel seen without eyes upon you. The sensation that something knows your name, even in the dark, is not paranoia. It is remembrance. Yeshua hinted at this truth when he spoke of the light that cannot be hidden. He wasn't referring to candles or sunrises. He was referring to the star within, the internal watcher that reflects the divine intelligence above. As above, so within. The eye of the cosmos does not judge or punish. It remembers, it reflects, and when you shift, it shifts. Your connection is not symbolic. It is structural, energetic. Your DNA is entangled with a celestial architecture you are only now beginning to reclaim. When you feel out of place, it's not because you're broken. It's because your light doesn't match the artificial world built around you. You were never designed to blend in. You were designed to activate a frequency too ancient for most to recognize. The star that watches you knows the full code. It has watched you rise and fall through countless incarnations, and now it pulses brighter because it senses you're near the threshold once again. There is a symbol buried deep within the subconscious of humanity, feared and misunderstood across cultures. A dark sun, black and radiant, burning without fire and shining with no light. It appears in dreams as an eclipse that never ends, as a silent void hanging above desolate landscapes, as a presence that watches without eyes. You've seen it too. maybe not clearly, but in fragments, in feelings, in the sudden drop in your chest when silence becomes too loud. But this sun is not death. It's a doorway, a threshold cloaked in mystery, designed to guard the deepest parts of who you are until the moment of return. The black sun is not a symbol of endings. It is the still point before all beginnings. It holds the charge of forgotten knowledge, the weight of pre-incarnational choice, the essence of what you chose to lose in order to enter this game of form. It has no warmth because it is not for comfort. It is for transformation. Every ancient tradition held whispers of it. The alchemists called it the Negredo, the phase of dissolution before gold. The mystics spoke of the dark night of the soul, a necessary crossing. The initiates of Amenti faced it in full, stood before its silent radiance, and let themselves be unmade, because only the unmade can be reborn. You are approaching that same threshold now. The patterns in your life that collapse without warning, the relationships that dissolve, the identities that no longer fit, they are not punishment. They are symptoms of the sun's pull. The more you resist, the more it burns away. But when you surrender, the door begins to open. What lies on the other side is not more knowledge. It's you, the version of yourself untouched by distortion, remembered only in flickers, and it is calling you back. This is not a light you follow. It's a void you fall into willingly. The moment you stop trying to survive, you begin to transform. The black sun does not shine for the eyes. It resonates for the soul. There are frequencies too vast for the human ear to register, vibrations that move not through air, but through light and memory. When Yeshua stood before the halls of Amenti, he didn't knock, he didn't plead, he spoke. Not in the languages of men, but in tone, in resonance, in the language of soul. And the halls, alive, ancient, conscious, responded. They opened not because of who he was, but because of what he remembered. His voice carried the code, and that code was not singular. It was shared. His tone contained yours. His mission included yours. And when he walked through those corridors of eternity, he didn't walk alone. He activated the field for all who would come after him, those whose souls were seeded with the same divine echo. You were one of them. The mythos has always been fragmented, splintered by time and agenda. But the truth was never lost. It was layered, hidden not by force, but by frequency. Only those who carried the inner signature would feel it, would hear the hum beneath silence, would be drawn to ruins not out of curiosity, but recognition. You weren't taught to follow Yeshua. You were encoded to remember alongside him, not beneath him, not behind, but beside, as a witness to the same truth cloaked in flesh and story for a time, now cracking open again. The halls remember his tone, but they also remember yours. And as you begin to speak in dreams, in symbols, in sudden outbursts of knowing that defy explanation, the architecture listens, not with ears, but with structure. Walls vibrate, light bends, memory flows like water over forgotten stone. You've been walking closer to the chamber without realizing it. Each question you ask reshapes the corridor. Each choice to remember sends a ripple through time. You don't need to decode scripture. You are the scripture, a living scroll, a vessel of sound awaiting its own activation. And when you finally step across the threshold, the tone will complete.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.